Something happened on Silly Comp Sunday this week that's so unlikely, it will probably never happen to me again. For those who don't know, Silly Comp Sunday is a weekly stream where we get weapon comps, that's weapon compositions, sets of 4 weapons to play, from my supporters on Patreon, YouTube members, and Twitch subscribers. Originally, people would just submit 4 weapons that form a really unorthodox or bad team comp for competitive play, and the idea was that we'd analyze the comp's strengths and weaknesses and explain why comps are built the way they are, but it's evolved to include challenges as well, like messing with our ability to make callouts or demanding that we wear certain gear, both to make the game more challenging and just to make us look ridiculous for your entertainment. During Splatfests, though, we have a rule that if we ever get a 10x, 100x, or 333x battle, we don't worry about the challenges and just play to win as best we can. We had been game planning for how to complete one of these challenges, but then a 100x battle came up and it was time to take it seriously. We won that, marveled at the enormous clout number we earned, went and took pictures of ourselves on the float, as one does, and then got back into the lobby and reminded ourselves of how we wanted to play the challenge of this comp. And then this happened.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Are you serious?
Are you
Oh
kidding
my
me?
god. What?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
What's cooler than ice cold?
What is this?
It's rare that I even get a 100x battle, and when I do, it's always been the only one I get all Splatfest. Based on that alone, this was shocking. But we didn't have the luxury of freaking out about it for too long, because now we had another 100x battle to win, which is what we did. Afterward, though, I stopped to think about how absurdly unlikely this was and realized I didn't totally know how absurdly unlikely it was, and I wanted to find out. The information Nintendo has made public about these battles goes like this. There's a small random chance that a given battle is a 10x battle. If you win a 10x battle, each player on the team gets a festival shell. Festival shells increase the odds of triggering a 100x battle in a way that scales with the number of shells owned by the players on your team. If you want 100x battles, you want everyone on the team to have shells, not just you. If your team triggers a 100x battle and the other team triggers a 100x battle, that battle becomes a 333x battle instead. This information is definitely helpful for understanding the odds, but it doesn't actually tell us how unlikely it is to trigger these battles. I went to several data miners for answers, and it turns out that no one outside the dev team can know for sure. The problem is that the decision about whether a match gets a multiplier is sent by the server, meaning it doesn't matter how deep we can get into a copy of the game, we simply won't find the code that flips the switch. What we have been able to do, though, is collect a sample of Splatfest matches from a bunch of different players and run statistical analysis on those to get approximate numbers. This is a project known as stat.ink, and you can find it online. This next little bit probably feels like a bit of a tangent for people interested in the main point of the video. It's addressing potential sources of bias in the stat.ink data, and even more nitpicky, the way those sources of bias are communicated on the website. If you'd like to skip ahead, you can use the chapters. This sample group is biased in a way that's kind of confusing to explain. See, on the actual page, you get this warning. This data is based on stat.ink users and differs significantly from overall game statistics. And so you get the impression that, okay, this isn't a representative sample of Splatoon players, it's a sample consisting of Splatoon players who self-selected to upload their data to stat.ink, which is a thing very few kinds of people actually do, and probably only people who fit a certain profile, have certain interests, almost certainly aren't beginners, etc., etc. But actually, that impression is wrong. Another disclaimer in the FAQ of the website says this. The community outside us often says stat.ink statistics are stat.ink user statistics and are therefore biased, which is incorrect. That's a very confusing disclaimer, considering what the first disclaimer said, but here's why both of them are correct. In order to prevent sender bias, most of the overall statistics exclude the data from the stat.ink user and aggregate data from the remaining 7 players each battle. So the data is biased in that it's only taken from players who would get matched up with someone who submits data to stat.ink, but it isn't actually taken from the users of stat.ink themselves, just their opponents. It's still biased, but it's significantly less biased than that would suggest. The creator of this website is Japanese, so I wouldn't be surprised that the confusion is caused in part by the English localization of the page. Just wanted to point that out really quickly in case someone sees this who has an interest in making it a little clearer. Anyway, what the numbers actually tell us is that a 10x battle is just slightly under 9%, close to 1 in 10. A 100x is around 1.4%, just slightly over 1 in 100. And a 333x looks to be around 0.075%, or 3 in every 4,000 matches. Using these numbers, that pushes my double 100x to just under 1 in 5,000, which is getting into really, really unlikely territory. You can play so many games of Splatoon that this 1 in 5,000 chance starts to be a lot more possible than you might think. So it's not the sort of thing to compare to getting struck by lightning, which is 1 in 10,000, or making it into the WNBA when you're a high school basketball player, which is 1 in 5,000. Both of those only happen or don't happen once, while playing 2 back-to-back games of Splatoon during a Splatfest happens maybe 100 times each month. By that reasoning, it would take 50 Splatfests before it happens again. And I imagine we'll have Splatoon 4 before then. If you'd like, you can also consider the probability that we won both of them, which narrows the odds down to, well, no different, because I never lose. 333x is extremely rare. Out of the entire dataset, Open and Pro combined, over 23,000 matches, there were maybe 17 or 18 of them. So those numbers are the ones we have the least certainty about. Given so little data, it might be better to calculate a prediction based on the other probabilities for all we know. We know the mechanism by which 333x battles happen better than any of the others, so understanding how those work might give us the better idea of how likely a 333x is for all we know. Still, 3 in 4,000 is definitely in the same ballpark. Like we've said, we can't know for sure where the probabilities of these matches came from. We don't have the formula that rolls the dice on whether a 10x battle is triggered. We don't have the formula that rolls the dice on a 100x battle even at base, nor do we know exactly how festival shells factor into that probability. What I've said is basically all I can say for sure, and hopefully that's already at least been helpful for understanding how it works. But, if you will permit me to put on my MatPat hat for a moment, there are some things I notice about these numbers. The 10x battle probability is close to 10%, but not quite there, and it gets really, really close to 10% if you add it to the probability of a 100x battle. I feel like when you roll a 100x battle, what might be happening is the exact same kind of roll that Nintendo has confirmed happens to convert a 100x to a 333x. 2 teams both roll a 10x at the same time. 100x. That would explain why the odds of a 10x battle are a little lower than 10%, because some of the time you roll a 10x battle, it turns into a 100x instead. It would also explain why the arithmetic difference between the 10x probability and 10% is just about the same number as the 100x probability. Now, that would predict that the odds of a 100x battle are exactly 1%, since you need to roll 2 10% chances at the same time. But remember, festival shells have some unknown impact on the probability of a 100x happening. You earn shells by winning a 10x battle, and the more shells your teammates have, the more likely a 100x battle becomes. Once a 100x or 333x battle is triggered, everyone involved loses all their festival shells, win or lose. This makes it really hard to figure out exactly how much of a boost festival shells give your odds. Even if the stat.ink users gave how many shells they'd earned, which I don't think they did, they'd still have their teammates to account for. And even if they were playing open in a team of 4 and they could actually all communicate to each other how many shells they each had, they still couldn't account for how many shells the randomly chosen opposing team had. The best we can maybe do is collect data on how many shells a player in the matchmaking queue tends to have on average, but again, we don't have that data either as far as I know. If, however, the average number of shells a team has increases the overall chances by, say, 40% or so. That would make it so that the expected 1% turns into what we actually see as 1.4%. And that seems like a pretty reasonable number. But that's just a wild, untestable speculation. A game wild, untestable speculation. Thanks for watching.